if you've ever been on a field op and during a break you went to take a crap, and then directly after that break was over, your team then moved through the area that you just took a crap in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. As always, likes and comments help, but nobody's posting anything that's useful anymore, so just go ahead and post whatever you want. We have a weird community, and I love you guys. So a lot of people have been asking me specifically about what optic I like to use, but then within optics, they want to know about Aimpoint versus the Trijicon MRO. So I have both, I use both, so let's talk about kind of some of my thoughts and impressions on both optics when compared against one another. Now, a quick note is that I don't have the Aimpoint T2. So I haven't purchased that. I have a T1 and it works fine for me. So there might be some discrepancies as far as the comparison goes since I don't have the newer model of Aimpoint. But honestly, a lot of you guys are still using the Aimpoint T1, so I don't think it's so much of an issue. So to start off, let's go ahead and just take a look at the optics first off. So we have the Aimpoint T1. I have it mounted here on the Mark 18 Mod 1. Mine is on a LaRue mount with a lower 1/3 co-witness, which is what I prefer. So excellent optic. I think it's like a 20mm objective lens or something like that. Right here on my Mark 18 Mod 0, I have the Trijicon MRO. Now if you notice, I also have it on the lower 1/3 mount. However, you can see how big that objective lens is. It's about 25mm, which is approximately 20% bigger than the Aimpoint T1. So we've seen what it looks like. Let's talk a little bit about what's good about one versus the other. So first off, what the MRO has going for it is that if you notice on the top of the turret on the MRO, that's where you have your intensity of your dot, so how bright that dot is. Now, I like it being on top because I can reach it with either hand very easily. Compare that to the T1 on the Aimpoint where I have to reach to the right side. Now, it's not that big of a deal, but I just find it to be more intuitive and just a good design. Now, some people say I don't like it on the top with the MRO because it kind of lessens their sight picture. Well, it's kind of a facetious argument because on the T1, it's on the side, so it's technically taking up room on the side and also reducing your sight picture, but no one ever complains about that. So I don't think that's really an argument point, but I do like the top placement. To turn it, it's fairly stiff, which is good, what I like. I don't want it to be like super easy to turn, and that way it's just turning when it gets hit and that kind of thing. So that's good. Now, compared to the T1, what I really like about the Trijicon MRO is that in the middle of its adjustments, it has an off position between the daylight settings and kind of the night vision settings. So it's nice because if I want to turn it off, I just kind of put it to the middle. That way I only have to click over 2 or 3 clicks to get the intensity level I want, versus the Aimpoint, which has about 12 different intensity settings, but I don't turn it off until I get to the very end at 1. So when I want to go from 0 all the way to my preferred brightness level, which is usually around 10 or 11, then I have to flip all the way through that. Again, not that big of a deal because for the most part, I leave both these optics on, which brings me to my next point, which is battery life. The Trijicon MRO at a 3 setting, which I only use indoors, I'm not using a 3 setting outdoors, has about 50,000 hours of battery life. So at a higher setting, you're gonna have a little bit less. The same stands true for the Aimpoint T1. A lot of people say, oh, hey, it has a 50,000 hour battery life, and it does, but only at, I think it's a 7 setting. I might be wrong. Go ahead and chew me up in the comments if I am wrong. But the point is that the higher settings that it's actually used at for both these optics, they're not quite at 50,000 hours, but there's still a ton of hours. I couldn't give you an estimate. I've had my T1 on for about 3 years now, so it's been working fine. But battery life in both of them is really good. What's nice about the Trijicon MRO, what's good and bad, is the objective lens. The objective lens is enormous. It gives you a really nice large picture. However, with that really nice large picture, you do have a slight magnification, about a 1.05 magnification. So some people have complained that it's really noticeable for them, that the edges are kind of fisheyed. I haven't seen that personally. I think these people are just looking through these optics in their basements on their airsoft rifles, and they're not actually shooting these a lot. Just kidding. Some people, it does bother some people, but I found that when I'm shooting this rifle at speed and I'm using it, I don't notice it, especially in bright daylight and that type of thing. I find the large field of view really refreshing. After I use the large field of view on the MRO, I found that every time when I go back to the Aimpoint Micro T1, that I feel like I'm looking through a toilet paper tube. I get that tube effect a lot more. I notice it a lot more than I usually do. So the Trijicon MRO certainly does have a really good sight picture. Another thing I like about it are the recessed turret controls. They're exposed. It's not that big of a deal because they are kind of recessed in these little turrets. That way you can't get to them unless you need to. I've used 5.56 casings to adjust them. They're a little bit more spongy than the Aimpoint T1, but again, it's not that big of a deal because at most I'm shooting this thing at maybe 200 meters, maybe 250, not beyond that really, not with the red dot. Not reliably, at least for me. So I find that it works fine because the thing's not super precise, so the adjustments aren't like that big of an issue for me. I think it's a half MOA per click. I think that's the same on the Aimpoint T1, just as a reference. Now, a couple problems with the MRO versus the Aimpoint T1. So the Aimpoint T1, the glass is unmatched. It's super clear. It's like looking through a window outside, that type of thing. Versus the MRO, which has a pretty noticeable blue tint. So again, I don't notice it so much when I'm shooting at speed, but if I'm taking longer shots, like 150, 200 meters, I'm taking that time to really gauge my target and that type of thing, it's definitely noticeable. So again, it's going to be dependent on the type of shots that you're making. I find that anything within 100 meters when I'm shooting a little bit more quickly, the blue tint's really not that big of a deal for me, but just so you're aware of it. The Aimpoint T1 is also a proven performer, so that's kind of a bullcrap accolade to give to the Aimpoint T1, but it has. It's gone through a lot of good tests as far as being in the field and being used in combat, versus the Trijicon MRO, which is now beginning to gain more of that notoriety, but it's still kind of a newcomer to the market. But being that Trijicon has made the Trijicon ACOG, which is an awesome battle-proven optic, I have no doubt that Trijicon knew what they were doing when they made this optic. As far as the dots go in both of these, it's a 2 MOA dot, so about the same. You can get a T1 or an H1 with the 4 MOA dot. Just depends on what you do. No big deal there. I find that the dots between the two look the same for me. I don't have an astigmatism or anything like that, any problems with my eyes, so it's a nice crisp dot on both the optics, but depending on what's wrong with your eyes, you're going to have problems with both, so it's not that big of a deal. One other weird thing about the MRO, and it's kind of hard to show, but it sits just slightly higher than the T1. So at a lower 1/3, I'm sitting maybe like, I don't know, I want to say like a 1/8 of an inch higher. So it can kind of mess with your head placement if you're used to the Aimpoint T1 kind of height. Finally, kind of something that's good about the MRO, just to kind of finish this off, is that it costs a lot less. Now, prices on the T1 are coming down a lot, but even with that being said, I've found the Trijicon MRO without a mount for like $375, and then you can buy like a nice mount for like $50, and you're looking at what, like $450? That's a pretty good price for a really nice optic versus the T1. You're looking to spend anywhere from $550 plus from what I've seen, even used. I'm sure you can find them cheaper, but the point is that the Trijicon MRO definitely has a price going for it. So kind of a nice little summary for you guys. Both are really good optics. The MRO does have a noticeable blue tint. Magnification that's very slight does bother some people. However, I found that at speed and with a lot of rounds, it doesn't make any difference to me. The Trijicon MRO has a giant field of view compared to the Aimpoint T1, and it is definitely noticeable going from one to the other. I think you'll be happy with either optic. Either optic I think will perform very well in different conditions. However, if you're strapped for cash, the Trijicon MRO is going to edge out the Aimpoint T1, maybe not so much T2 in a lot of ways. So hope that kind of helped you guys out. I think both are great optics. I think the T2 kind of improves upon the T1, but you're looking to spend a lot more cash. Lots of options out there, guys. But as far as both those go, pick whatever suits your fancy and whatever looks cool, because literally nothing else matters.